greets everyone and says hi to people during the day. And he's just like a really big, awesome guard dog. He's a Great Pyrenees, and then that was Buddy. He's new to the farm this season, but he's a blue heeler. And they're having fun. So we're out in the vineyard today. We're trying to tame these things down. This is Norton. It's a type of varietal that thrives in this area. It's very hardy. It's also very vigorous, and so it grows a lot. So getting rid of the old growth, getting rid of the disease stuff, trying to get about 2,000 pounds of grapes this year, and that'll give us approximately 600 bottles of wine. Last year's vintage, 2021, we harvested about 1,800 pounds of grapes. They went to 2 separate winemakers, and we're expecting that wine to be bottled and delivered to the restaurants in September. So we're super excited to finally have some mature vines that are now on their 7th growing season, producing some really healthy Norton grape juice that's being stewarded and turned into some really delicious natural wine. So when it comes to pruning these bad boys, pruning takes a really long time to wrap your head around how to make it work and being able to see, you know, what's going to produce fruit, what's not going to produce fruit, what shoots do we want to keep to turn into cordons, which will be more of like a branch that's living for a while. A good fruit, like a bud that's going to produce good fruit, they've got some characteristics to it. One is that it's as thick as a number 2 pencil. You really want it to be nice and thick and super healthy. And each one of these buds, there's a primary bud, and then there's secondary and tertiary buds. So these primary buds that look nice and healthy are what I'm looking for. And I'm going to keep 3 primary buds. 1, 2, and then this one right here. So right here, I'm gonna snip that away, and then I'm gonna just kind of keep working down the plant. I basically look at each vine and step back and kind of like view what's going on. I start at the trunk of the grape. We'll come in here and we'll weed as well as mulch it down, and we'll put some compost on it and some wood chips just to keep everything at bay, and then we keep it mowed. This vineyard gets 0 chemical applications. We don't use any herbicides. We don't use any serious fungicides. Everything is natural, biological, organic. And that's really important for us. So this doesn't look like anything now, but these are actually really established beds of elderberries. And so what I do is I take the cuttings from the elderberries to propagate. And then after we take all of our cuttings before springtime, we actually use a flail mower and we flail mow them all the way down. And the reason for this is that if we were to keep these elderberry bushes up and large and alive, then every one of those canes or those shoots is gonna shoot new growth. We're gonna have a lot of flowers and then fruit, but it's gonna be at a very inconsistent stage. So one technique to get a larger amount of fruit harvested in a shorter amount of time is actually to mow down the elderberries. When we mow down the elderberries, it doesn't kill them, it gets rid of all the old growth, but then the byproduct of that is a bunch of very, very strong primary canes. Each one of these canes is gonna sprout from the ground. They're all gonna come up to be about 5-6 foot high. They're gonna have one big flower cluster, and then that's gonna equal one big fruit cluster. And all of these will produce fruit and ripen in a 2-week window. This way we can come in here and there's not gonna be a small amount, there's gonna be a very large amount, so all the wild birds won't be able to eat a large proportion of that fruit, and we're gonna be able to harvest more for ourselves. So here's an example of those primocanes. So that is a baby, not so baby elderberry plant. It looks like it's just getting started, but the thing about it is that the root system underneath here is now on its 5th season. So you have 5 years of root growth. So come springtime, this thing is just gonna jump and explode, and then we'll get those really nice canes with those really big berry sets. This was a test block of some, I believe these are triple crown blackberries, and they are still needing to get pruned before they start to grow. Right here is a goji berry. This was kind of like just a test to see what would do well here. The blackberries and the goji berries have performed very well on this site, so we'll continue to put more of these types of fruits on this zone. And so we're excited to plant a lot more blackberries this spring, as well as propagating the goji berry. The goji berry creates this really nice, delicious medicinal berry that we're able to utilize. And then the blackberries, this specific row is usually used for farm tours. So when people come to the farm and blackberries are in season, we get to walk by this row and then they get to harvest the blackberries off of the canes. These are hazelnuts. There's probably about, I think there's like 800, I think, when I planted them. So 600 are still alive. Some of them are doing really well and are right next to each other. So I might dig some of them out and transplant them. But for the most part, this will turn into a big hedge. And if a deer were to come here and eat it or grouse these trees, or a buck were to come and hit the trunk and scrape them, they're just gonna sprout again and they're gonna grow. Unlike a lot of our fruit trees, if they get hit by a deer, if deer eat them or mess with them, they're gonna die. So this is a really good crop to have on the outside of the property or where you have a lot of deer pressure. And that's kind of the idea with this. There's a cluster of hazelnuts that we missed last season, and there's still one hazelnut. And so here's a nice hazelnut. Kids are hanging out with us on spring break. Sometimes we go on vacation, but spring break for us is a super busy time of the year. Buddy, you're gonna have to be nice, okay? First time having chickens on pasture and Buddy being here, so this might be exciting. So, a little early actually for us to have the chickens on pasture, but given all the things that we have going on this year, it really made sense for us to get them out. This is our mobile RV park, the mobile chicken coops, so the egg mobiles. So pretty cool. They got a coop that has all the nesting boxes in it. Gets opened up first thing in the morning. Chickens go in there, they lay their eggs, then they leave. 4 p.m. we go in, collect all the eggs, close it up, keep the birds out of that coop at night. Then they go into the other coops to perch and sleep. The doors get shut automatically at sundown. Then in the morning, hook up to them. We can move them if we need to, or we can just leave them in that same spot for a couple of days. Right now, I think that we're probably around somewhere around like 480 birds. We're a little bit light right now, so they're getting anywhere from 200 to like 300 eggs.
Per day?
Yeah, it's per day. I think that a good egg laying variety in a year will lay like 280 to like 300 eggs, I think. I think it might be like right around 280, 290. Now that's if they're healthy and things are nice. If we were to only have a chicken coop in one area with chicken runs, and over time, that soil is going to become almost polluted with too many nutrients. So in this case, by moving them around the property, they're having a much more diverse access to things to eat, a better diet. They're also going to go after like issues in the pasture like voles and moles, mice, things like that. The coops stay really, really clean, and it's more of a regenerative system because we're feeding them, but there's no waste to this system. All of the manure, all of the spent grain, that all lands on the pasture, and then that actually fertilizes the pasture. So every year this pasture is getting more and more healthy and more organic matter and producing a little bit more, which is great. This system is something I learned about from Joel Salatin, and it would actually be in a pasture rotation system where you're raising cattle on pasture and you're rotating them every day. 3 days behind the cattle, you would bring the chickens, and then they would actually go to those cow pies that are full of fly larvae, and they're gonna scratch them, they're gonna eat all that fly larvae, and they're gonna like kind of sanitize the pasture in a lot of ways and allow that pasture to regrow and be much healthier. In this case, we don't have cattle on this property, and so we just use this to distribute the nutrients around the pasture and to just kind of keep rotating them and moving them around.
He's so beautiful, though.
Snowball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His job is like to protect the chickens, right?
Yeah, he protects the whole property. So a lot of times he greets everyone and says hi to people during the day, but at night he doesn't really sleep. He goes around, he walks the whole property, he keeps coyotes and fox and raccoon, things like that away. And he's just like a really big, awesome guard dog. So he's a Great Pyrenees, a livestock guardian dog. And then that was Buddy, who an Australian cattle dog. He's new to the farm this season, but he's a blue heeler. And they're having fun.
How old is he?
He's 2 years old.
So this is like a new thing to the farm.
Yeah, only 2 years of having livestock guardian dogs. And honestly, our predation is way down. We lose a lot less birds to raccoons and coyotes than what we used to. And so that's a good thing.
So yeah, if you want to just talk about a little bit about like what we have growing on these tables.
This is sort of mid part of the development of plant life here at the farm. What we've done is we've planted seeds in trays with certain size cell. This whole area here is cauliflower. Over there we've got leeks and onions. So these are fennel, which we use in a lot of different ways in the restaurant. Over here we have, these are tomatoes that are in their very early stage. They've just started to sprout. These trays here are what we call microgreens. These are collards, those are radishes and beets. More often than not, restaurants use this for garnish on plates, but there's a tremendous amount of nutrition in the microgreens, and people are starting to recognize that. We're looking to perhaps expand our microgreen production so that we can offer that as a nutrition solution for people on their own tables. These will never get transplanted. In fact, These are going to get harvested today. The leaves will get cut off here, and in fact, all these trays over here have already been harvested one time. We can usually get 2 to 3 harvests off of each tray once they start to sprout. So these will all get harvested a little bit later today. And then again, we've got tomatoes and peppers here. Those are elderberries, some violas, and currants over here. And then over here, the taller plants you see in those trays are tomatoes that we transplanted actually end of last week from one of the smaller trays over to the larger trays. This is a variety of greens. These here are cilantro, that's parsley. We've got a couple kinds of cabbages and lettuces. These are all lettuce. These are cabbages. These are also cabbages. These are the tall, thin guys, either onions or leeks. In here, we've got parsley and radishes that have been partially harvested. He's doing hikari turnips right now. We're going through tremendous growth right now. That greenhouse over there we built just last fall. The pack house is almost done. The other little building there is going to be our marketplace. Plus, we've been working on the expansion of the servery and adding the kitchen up in the barn because we're just getting a tremendous amount of requests to do special events up there. So both weddings and different types of dinners and things of that nature, plus the stuff that we put on ourselves. So we're expanding that whole operation so we can facilitate that whole process. And in fact, the kitchen probably will be bigger than the one at Harmony.